Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Black Baseball Mixtape. I am your host, Cheats. As always, the mixtape is brought to you by the Family Podcast Network. Again, I start most podcast episodes with this, but I have to start by thanking the audience, thanking everyone that is listening, subscribing in our community, especially on Instagram and Twitter. We have a growing community where people are interacting with us, talking Black baseball, having fun. We just had an amazing last couple of days. Bob Kendrick from the Negro League Baseball Museum was on, followed by Curtis Granderson from the Players Alliance was on. Obviously, Curtis is a 16-year pro. We've had just an amazing amount of guests and a lot of interaction on our Sunday night or Monday night, one of the two, community conversations on Instagram. We go IG live with some amazing guests, and we're able to interact with you as a community. So with all of that said, I want to thank you for your support of the mixtape. Let's keep it growing. We're about to enter the regular season. Woo, we got a lot going on. What we have going on this episode, a very, very special episode, is Steve Friend from Steelo Sports. You may not know this, but the first Black-owned baseball apparel glove company, baseball equipment company that made it all the way to the major leagues. They also made it to the World Baseball Classic as well. Steelo is really, really on the come up and making it happen, and it's headed all by Steve Friend. Steve, welcome to the mixtape.
Man, thank you. What's good? I'm excited, man. I've been anxious to speak with you, man. So this is fun.
I am so excited to speak to you, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you in particular is because when I found out about Steelo, and I found out about Steelo a while ago, if you check the DMs and the emails, they've been months in the making, Steve. They've been months in the making, because as soon as I saw what you were doing, and I want to make sure I get this tagline right, the dopest movement in baseball. And I actually happen to agree. When I found out what you were doing, the way that you're blending hip hop culture, Black culture, along with baseball, I was like, I gotta talk to this brother. He is on the right direction and everywhere that I want to be. I'm gonna start there because I'm sure you grew up as a baseball player and a hip hop head, but how did you get the awareness, the individualism, the creativity to figure out I need to blend these, and this is something that's missing in the culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think a lot of things just in general come from a place of whether it's pain or issue or whatever. And so I think a lot of my journey came from not seeing the things that I wanted to see in the game, either through my own experiences or through shared experiences with other people. So, obviously, like, the Black baseball community is very small and very tight, and we go through the exact same things across the board, regardless of where you're at. And so for me, I was just seeing a void, man. Like, there's a certain flair and a light and just a swag and a different kind of love from Black players as it relates to the game. Like, we just move a little different in the game. And so I didn't see any of the other companies, brands really harnessing that. And so simply from that place, I got really into frustrated for a while. Like, why aren't they focusing on, Black players? Everything's moving down to Latin America, which is great for the Latin communities and getting those players and getting that infrastructure together. But, like, I really didn't like the way things were going. So it's like, okay, well, what can I do? Like, how can I support? How can I help? And it ended up coming out in this format based on my own experiences, with my jobs or work or ideas and passions. And so, like, it just came from that place, and, like, it morphed into a baseball company. I always get the itch since I stopped playing to stay involved with the game to some capacity. We all share the same love for the game. You're doing it in one format on your end, I'm doing it in another on mine. And so it's really from that, man. And it's turned into something that has grown past my initial kind of views of it. And now it's, those goals keep on kind of stepping up. But that's where it came from, man. And I'm trying to have impact in the way that I can. And it's about building a platform and giving players and businesses and people and culture, and especially Black and Brown community, a platform and an opportunity, something to identify with and like share and grow with. And so that's what it's about, man. That's kind of where it all came from.
No, and it's phenomenal the way that the brand as a whole has been able to be very intentional and very distinct to say this is in many ways for hip hop culture. For it's a different look, it's a unique look. It's not like some of the established old school Wilsons, Rollins, if you will. This is something different. How has that process been for you as a creative and you as a business owner to introduce something in a market? Let's just be frank. It has to be a good old boy network at this point. When you're talking about the established companies that have provided equipment for players in a long time. And correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it just recently that MLB was like, oh, now, yeah, you can be a little bit more individual in the equipment that you wear?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely an uphill kind of thing, like an uphill battle. But to be honest, from a, let's call it a differentiation standpoint, I don't really, from a business standpoint, yes, I look at the other brands to that extent, like, okay, because there's a model that you can kind of follow. They've kind of like they're legacy companies, right? Like you've seen kind of what they've done, the format and way you got to move. And certainly I've worked at some of these companies, so I understand internally what that infrastructure needs to look like. But for me, man, like honestly, it's as simple as like, yo, I block other brands on Instagram because I don't even want to see them just for my own purpose. Like I don't want to be influenced by
Right.
what they're doing. And so I do some of that, and I just like stay in my lane. Like it's not. I try not to look at the places that I don't feel are doing it the way I would want to do it anyway. So it's like, what's the point? So like that's a really easy thing for me. But I think from a business standpoint, it's definitely I've had to really self-educate quite a bit. I mean, I spent years, learning, about investors and terms and infrastructure. And I've got a lot of work experience in the corporate career that I've been able to pull from, whether it's product development or e-commerce or whatever. But it's definitely like it's not easy. But again, like I have that passion and this, a very strong vision for what I want to do. And so for me, it's really easy. I'm staying in my lane and I'm focusing on what's important to me. And I think what's important to me is important to the demographic that I'm trying to represent. And so for me, I try to keep it very simple from that regard. And I think what has been seen to date is just me kind of doing that. I'm not trying to be super different. It's through the lens of which I see things. And so that's how it's coming out. And by design and strategically, yes, I haven't done some things because people will bite, or other companies, even some of the big legacy brands, some things have popped up and some biting stuff, and even some of the other smaller ones. But like at the end of the day, that's happening. And
right.
There's always a culture and all that stuff. And
this isn't the 90s where you can just show up at people's houses.
Yeah, right.
Be like, stop taking my stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, but I'm good, man. I'm focused.
What? So. Well, let's go with that, but flip it a little bit and say, because you have had quite a bit of success in a short amount of time. When you're talking about the history of some of these other companies, you've come in the game and done some really, really big things early on. What has been the most rewarding part of, to date, kind of the timeline of Steelo? You've had, like I said, a number of successes. When you look at this, what's some of the stuff that's the most kind of gratifying as an entrepreneur right now?
That's a really good question. I think for me, one of the big moments was getting equipment in a major league game for the first time. That was like really special because, as an athlete and as a player, I'd always dreamed to get into the big leagues. I was drafted and, played a little pro ball, got kicked around for a while. And, that dream, I never got to the big leagues, right? But like God has a unique way of working, right? So it's like, oh, you're going to get to the big leagues. Maybe it's just in a different format. So that kind of happened. And so for me, that was like a really heartfelt moment for me. But even more so in that same moment, Jonathan Davis, one of my first guys I signed to a Steelo deal, you know, he broke into the big leagues with the glove and had his debut in Toronto. And so that was really special being a part of that and just like watching him go through that experience. And so that whole kind of situation was really gratifying. Just, and you know, there was a certain level of validation that kind of comes with that, right? It's like the hard work, all the work you've been doing on the side, behind the scenes, up late night, you know, spending time, like you can look at it as kind of like that payoff moment. So that was really special. And obviously, like after that, things really started to kind of move, and we've signed other players since then, and we've gotten even, we've gotten even more traction since then. We've launched mobile apps, and a lot of other stuff. We got other stuff coming up now too, but so that was probably the moment that stands out the most. I've had a couple people in passing randomly when I was been out in the world moving around doing stuff, whether it's at the Ranger Stadium in Texas, and some people just came up to me and recognized me and really appreciated what I was doing. And that, I think that was really special, is, you know, like you're making an impact, even if it is just like one person. So that was really cool too. So there's been a handful of moments like that that, you know, I really value. So
That's dope. That's dope. And I feel like for the audience that's listening, we're talking to Steve Friend. He is the founder of Steelo Sports. I feel like I started already rounding third. I want to let the audience let the audience in a little bit. Just we kind of know how it came about, but for people even on the surface level, when they ask you to say, "Hey, Steve, tell us what Steelo is," so for people that may not be as indoctrinated, how do you describe the company?
yeah, I mean, it's simple, man. I mean, like, again, like going back to this hip hop conversation you and I had, like, it stems from that. You know, I spent probably a legit year and a half trying to figure out, you know, from the branding exercise, right? Like, what do you call this if you want to do this? Like, what's this going to be? What's it going to mean? And, you know, I came up with a lot of different stuff, and it just wasn't feeling right. Did lengthy exercises in detail. And I was listening, it might have been like a Gangstar song. And he said, you know, my Steez.
You
And
know
I
my
was like,
Steez. Come on, Moment of Truth album.
yeah,
Stop playing with me, Steve.
yeah. I was like Steelo, and so I scribbled it out. You know, I started mocking up the logo design and put it on different formats and mediums, and it started to feel really good and it made sense. So it really stemmed from that moment. Again, like a void moment, and then coming to something organically, which was nice. And so it's just style. It's like, you know, when we were talking about my boy from college and my roommate, and, you know, in junior college, we used to just take ground balls, you know what I'm saying? Just back to back and freestyle and just like, you know, get the hands going and everything. And it was all about style, and we had a little freedom to freestyle around and whatnot. And so it kind of comes from that sentiment of just like style, integrity, whatever your stilo is, whatever your flow is, like that's what it's about. And so I wanted to represent that through a product. And I felt that was probably the best way to convey that. And so, like, for those that know that term, get exactly what it is, but like others that don't, like, obviously there's an explanation that has to come with it. But that's where it stemmed from, man. It's from the things I'm passionate about, and that's how it came out.
And even kind of into the products. Again, for people that may not as be familiar, Steelo represents gloves, bats, batting gloves. Where are we at with all the products?
Yeah, we obviously gloves is where we kicked off. We've been doing bats now for a while. We have amazing bats. That's going to be a push here coming up pretty soon. We're doing batting gloves too. We've been sitting on stuff, so I've done a lot of the R&D and work on things. Like, you know, everything's timing, right? Like,
right.
You can run, or you can like kind of walk and run and sprint and do the interval thing. And so I'm very detail oriented, so we've been working on that stuff. We got protective equipment, working on some metal bats as well. So I'm ramping up. I'm just taking my time with it and making sure things are right. We got some big partnerships that will probably come out, that folks will hear about as well, that are going to change some things as well. So I'm excited, man. We're going to get into everything. And then the most exciting piece for me, obviously the equipment is like, you know, the no-brainer and the 101 piece, but getting into a different take on some apparel. So I'm really excited about that, and putting those things together as well.
It's definitely seems as if it's almost, I don't think holistic may be the exact term, but it's obviously not just equipment. It's not just this brand. It's almost a lifestyle culture situation that happens to focus on baseball equipment because it's so dope. And when you look at the overall presentation that's been presented to date, it almost doesn't feel like a baseball company as much as it feels like a community. It feels like culture, and it's for fans like me that happen to love and absolutely just care about baseball at its core as well. Let's go into your baseball journey because you mentioned it in passing as well. You, from everything I know, Steve, and everything I've read and followed, especially with the company, there's two words that come into my mind. Two words that come into focus. One is more universally used than one that's used in our culture. Grinder is what people will say a lot. Like, man, this person grinds. He's just grinding to make every step happen. When we talk about it, especially look where we come from, the word is hustler and not in a negative connotation. When Hove is like, I'm a hustler, he's going to make any situation work. When I look at the career that you've had, fall in love with the game, but tell everybody about some of that hustle, some of that grind, even as early as high school. It wasn't a thing where you were heavily recruited from high school to college to pro ball. Tell me about that hustle, that mentality. How did you make that shake to achieve your dreams on the field?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, man. I don't really talk about it too much. So any opportunity is always welcome.
Let it all out. Let it all.
No, like again, I kind of talked to you earlier about kind of the double life thing, and I played baseball, growing up, played soccer, all the other sports and whatnot. Baseball really kind of stuck with me. It just hits different. So I played in high school, and I pitched. I played a little third base. Couldn't play shortstop because there's a guy ahead of me and whatnot, a couple guys or whatnot. As soon as they kind of graduated and whatnot, then I hit short and did that whole thing. Got down. Got a scholarship to a D2 school in Indiana, St. Joseph's College, a little D2 joint. I think it was like maybe a 3/4 scholarship. So that was cool. Mom was happy about that. Ended up redshirting there because I got some stress fractures in my legs. And then I transferred, man. I found out, it's funny, I transferred to a junior college because I found out my freshman year that, you can get drafted at a junior college. You don't have to wait for 3 years. So I was like, oh, shit. Okay, let's look at that. So I made this whole plan, and I'm like a goal setter. So I'll put together a plan, and then to me, it's just execution, right? And so I did that. I transferred to Kishwaukee, and that's where I met a lot of the friends I have today. A lot of black baseball players were at that school. It's outside of the city of Chicago, Northern Illinois University's campus. So played there for 2 years, had a great program, great experiences, had a lot of draft picks on the team. I got drafted there. So that was really dope. Really grew as a player there. We were grinding. Like, our school was out in the middle of the cornfields. And if you know Illinois, like, Illinois is flat, it's corn, you know what I'm saying? It's nothing pretty, but you can really get out there on some field of dreams and get busy. So that's what we were doing out there on the low. And a lot of us moved on in the game, whether we're still playing or some played and coached or whatnot. And some were coaching in affiliate ball, like we talked about. And from there, I transferred to the College of Charleston. I was going to go to Southern University. I had 2 opportunities. Actually, I had multiple opportunities, but Southern offered a scholarship. College of Charleston offered a full ride. They actually took some money off the table, maybe like $3,000, because I wanted to take a visit to Southern because I felt it owed it to myself. And they ended up taking like $3,000 off, but essentially a full ride to College of Charleston. So landed that, played there with Brett Gardner. He was there. He was our center fielder when I was there. So I came in and played short and was killing it there for a while. I have some other hang-ups about Charleston, and I don't really ever talk about it. For me, I had a very racial experience there that really kind of affected my career trajectory from a baseball.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, it was real, man. That's real down there. We had a coach, and I've actually started naming him because I think it's important to name transgressions these days. But we had a head coach named John Pulowski, and one of his assistant coaches. They were just they were brutal. I was maybe one of 3 black dudes on the team. My roommate was black. Really went through some stuff there, man. Was killing it. Had some ended up just getting put on the shelf for like no reason. It was just a lot of stuff like going through my mail and scouts, and it was just crazy.
That's crazy.
So I actually left a full ride scholarship because I did not want to go back there because of those things. So
Right.
I went off my own, man. I left school. I dropped out after that year, after we went to the NCAA tournament. Then I went at it pro ball. So I started like getting busy. I went to Chicago, started training at the White Sox Center, doing my thing. And ended up getting picked up in independent ball and getting kicked around independent ball for like 4 or 5 years, running around playing pro ball and trying to get up in there, and decided to hang them up after, I was maybe 28, and then just started working with the whole other way. Started developing footwear and fashion and getting into corporate e-commerce and whatnot. So, but yeah, man, my path was really different. It's really, but again, like even from the college and pro side of experience, the network, the relationships that I built, I still have to this day. And that was a large piece of the Steelo project that has kind of come about into this thing now. So I wouldn't change any of those things for the world, because it's completely made my life the way it is today, and the opportunities that I've had and am currently in today. So I'm very thankful and grateful for everything that's gone down. But yeah, it was definitely I've had a different path. And I think that's why the fire that I have in me now, like doing the things I'm doing, I think, everybody's got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder to some extent. And so I definitely flex that a little bit.
And one of the things that, as you've gone through that process, it was a pattern for you of having to be proactive, right?
Oh yeah.
Having to reach out to coaches, having to cut your own videos, in many ways, and let's go back even further, having to kind of learn the game on your own, right? Like kind of having to learn the game through watching your stars, your favorite players do something, and then trying to go out and emulate that. So you went, put it in perspective. You went from learning the game from watching people on TV in many ways and emulating that, to starring in high school, getting rides to colleges, getting rides to a D1 college, and then ultimately playing independent baseball at the professional level. I'm interested to get your perspective on what's been harder, that type of grind to get to where you were on the field, or the type of grind that it's taken post your career to get Steelo where it is now. I know it's not apples to apples, it's different things, but the hustle and the grind and the trying to figure it out, there's got to be some similarities. Which ones did you find yourself hitting your head against the wall more?
Yeah, no, to be honest, and again, like going back to our conversation about hustling and whatnot, and I'm definitely a hustler. I would say the baseball piece was harder. I grew up with a single mother. My dad wasn't really around, so I was a kid throwing the tennis ball against the garage. Like I remember watching Ozzie Smith on, I think it was like, what was the Saturday is like Twib or something like that. And I think he was throwing the ball across the diamond, not looking, like no look from short. And I was like, okay, bet I can do that. And so I was always that kid in front of the garage doing stuff, teaching myself, getting lessons. I was the guy that showed up at major league games, like when they used to open the gates like 2 hours before, and I would literally just post up and watch the middle infielders move and work. And so that's how I learned the game. But like actually getting through, I sent out, a lot of people don't know this, even my closest friends don't really know this. One might. I actually sent out probably 50 to 100 letters to schools in high school just to get noticed. So I could get to a camp, get invited maybe to a little winter camp or something, and then like go out there. I know I could I'll bust it down. Like I just need to be seen, right? So like I did that. I took that same format and got a scholarship eventually out of that process. Did the same thing in junior college. Like sent out about 50 to the major schools. Would get incomings. Got some visits, got some interest. Maybe had about 10 on the hook. So I really did hustle through that and had to make. Everything I was able to get or achieve was definitely a grind. Like I had to go out and get it. And so I think one of the biggest differences between that and those experiences all the way up through college and even pro ball, like I was out hustling. I slept in my car traveling to workouts for pro ball. Like, I mean, I slept on Dodgers Town before they closed it. Like, I was on the other side. I literally slept in my car one night before a workout, like Willie Mays Hayes stuff, right?
Right.
I slept in like
The greatest character, by the way.
Yeah, like I was out there.
That's crazy.
And so like the biggest thing that I've noticed from moving onto the business side is like baseball is you're very I don't want to say restrictive, but you're it's almost like your destiny is in somebody's hands. You know what I'm saying? Like it's either the coaches or the scouts, or like you have to like they have complete ability to like derail whatever you have going on because you're dependent on them. And so with business, it was a little different. There's some freedom there. It's like, well, I can actually go out and do whatever I want, and the restrictions aren't quite the same. And so I kind of made a pact with myself, like I don't want to be in situations where somebody has that much control over me. And so business kind of allowed that. I could kind of like branch off a little bit and do my own thing and like not be so kind of held down. So I definitely think the baseball side was a harder lift just because like I really had to grind and hustle just to get anything I got and got pretty far. The business side of things is, I don't want to say easier, but like, and the work ethic you get from that baseball applies to the business side. So you've already done it. So now that
but less restrictive because you're saying you have more freedom. You control your destiny more.
Yeah, I got the ability to like make decisions and do my thing. So
does it blow your mind, given everything that we've talked about and some of our shared experience in regards to the game? Does it blow your mind that now, like hip hop is in every locker room? Everybody wants to be a part of this culture. Like everybody's trying to figure out how to put their own individualness and creativity. Does it blow your mind when you see the game today in the way that it is? And it's still, we got a long way to go. I'm not saying we're there, but by far hip hop culture is the dominant culture in MLB locker rooms. And so does it blow your mind just to see that?
I mean, it blows my mind to the extent of like, wow, knowing the reference point. Like, I mean, we could talk like, you remember when the Sprite commercials came out with like Pete Rock back in the day, right? And like on that, when things kind of started to turn and go corporate and hip hop culture. And like, so I knew back then, like, okay, like it's going to move this way. Pretty soon, every commercial is going to have car commercials, going to have hip hop music or a tone of it. And like sport, obviously with basketball and football, like have been doing it. And obviously that's going to move into baseball because it's just a cultural thing, right? It supersedes sport. So I knew that was going to happen. And I also knew that, you know, sport and culture is also cyclical. So I know that I'm smart enough to know that baseball will eventually come around. It may take a while, like maybe some people got to move out of positions and whatever, and the culture has to catch up. But it doesn't surprise me. I would say it probably more surprises me that there haven't been as many changes from an infrastructure standpoint. Like, it makes sense to me. Like, it's
explain there. Tell me what you mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, for example, you know, there are hardly any black vendors in Major League Baseball, right? You can probably count them on your hand. You know, we're still scrapping to get academies in the U.S. For black and brown communities. And obviously there are efforts happening. You got MLB Develops, you got, you know, Players Alliance doing stuff. I mean, everybody, like, we got the people we need to have doing those things and trying to build that up. But it's nowhere near like what's down in like Latin America and these other countries. And that's a whole nother conversation that I could talk about, and those declines from a percent standpoint. But
right.
I think like infrastructure is important, right? It's like you can patch things up by making a quick solve on the top end of it, but eventually, like when that wears off, like then what do you have? You still have the same infrastructure you had before. So for me, getting into business, and one of the reasons why I got into business in this format was to bridge that gap. So it's like, I don't want to just like be a part of the surface level conversation. Like, oh yeah, we got like more blacks in the game, or, oh yeah, we got more, there's hip hop music in the game, or this and that. Like, I want the meat behind that. Like, I want to make sure that there's infrastructure being built so that stays that way and it doesn't go away. And so for me, putting a business together and trying to create a platform and an infrastructure for that, it gets us a seat at the table, and then it allows us to branch off and do other things and build more business and more relationships and more partnerships, so that now you have, instead of, let's call it 5 legacy equipment companies, you've got 5, and then you've got 1, and maybe that 1 turns into 2 and 3. And like, things start to even out, and now you've got a voice and a platform to market and advertise differently. So I can advertise way different than these other companies because it's more risky for them. But for me, it's authentic and I can do what I want to do. So I think that's really important. I think it gets missed all the time. And
I think so too.
The marketing, the infrastructure, those things are so important. And it's coming around, you know what I'm saying? But like, those are the areas where I'm really focusing, because I think those ultimately at the end of the day are going to be what really matter in order to keep that surface level stuff up and visible for people to get excited about. So,
ladies and gentlemen, the voice you're hearing is Steve Friend. He is the founder, CEO, entrepreneur of Steelo Sports. Steve, we're going to get you out of here on a couple of rapid fire questions. Steve, talk to me about Steelo athletes. You've got a number of athletes under the umbrella. You look at the website, we can see that Hunter Green is now, named the opening day starter. He's a Steelo athlete. Tell me who you have under the umbrella and that part of the game. Because in my mind, I'm thinking sneaker wars. I'm thinking you're signing people like Nike and Adidas and New Balance and, all of it. Is it like that? But tell me about the Steelo athletes, and then tell me how you go about acquiring Steelo athletes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, we want to, again, like going back to our earlier conversation, we want to work with, people and athletes and partners who share a similar mindset and who understand what we're trying to do. So that's the initial lens that we look at everything through. So when it comes to working with athletes and bringing athletes on board, first and foremost, we want to make sure that we have the right athletes that want to be a part of what we're doing and understand what it is and what it's about. And so that's one. Another component is those that understand the importance of giving back. And so a lot of the athletes, I'd argue all of the athletes that I currently have they have those components, whether they're doing it in their communities or they're running camps or things like that on their own outside of the game. So those are really important things that we look at. And then also just, like it's got to be the right kind of vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get hit up by tons of players wanting to come in, and I've certainly reached out to tons of players, and it's not for everybody, and not everybody is always interested. Mm-hmm. So I think that in itself, especially as a startup, weeds out whatever's either supposed to be there or not be supposed to be there. So that's kind of what happens. But I'm excited. So we got obviously Hunter Green, as everybody knows. We got Gonzalez with the Giants. He's injured right now, but he's an amazing player, and I'm looking for a lot of things out of him coming up. We got Jonathan Davis as OG that we've had for a minute he's with Detroit now. Sterling Sharp, another OG. I believe the first guy signed way back in the day. He's with the Red Sox now.
I was going to ask you about that. Is he the first? Sterling Sharp, is he the first person?
I think he was the first guy that actually accepted. I think we had like a handful of guys, and
I was gonna ask, how did that pitch go? Like, how do you figure out? Like, you got a big dartboard and be like, these are like, how did you approach it from a brand new company saying, all right, now we got to go out and get guys?
Yeah, well, first I knew I had to have a decent product, right? So it's like I can't have some trash out here, So,
right.
I had that, and then I just reached out. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
I'd kind of look at guys, at least through social media and see what they're about and could get a good feel of whatnot. Reach out to them, and if there was some interest, we'd either work with them directly and work out an agreement. I've got endorsement contracts that we use, and
that's dope.
And or we go through the agents and the agency if we got to do that, and that happens a lot too. And sometimes that can get in the way because there's obviously agents are a little different; they work a little different, but. So it's like that's kind of how it all happens. There's just that initial reach out, and we start landing guys that want to be a part of it, and
that's dope.
That's the game.
All right, let's have some fun, Steve. Let's have some fun.
Good.
You're a pro player. You've had a lengthy career. I ask every guest on the mixtape this question: if you could face any pitcher, living or dead, who do you face and why?
Ooh, living or dead. I mean, if I want to get I would love to see what it would be like to face a Satchel Paige. Mm-hmm. That would be kind of.
That's a good one.
Straight curiosity. The other is maybe a Pedro Martinez because he's just so filthy. So I probably, off the top of my head, I think about those two for sure. Yeah.
Would you rather be a GM of a Major League Baseball team? Would you rather be an on-field manager, so you manage the team, the GM of a team, or commissioner of baseball?
Ooh, that's tough. Like, yo, I would love to get on a field and even in a dugout again. So like that right there, being on the on-field manager would be kind of clean because it's just like locker room again. But again, like I've morphed into this whole like business side of thing too, so I could definitely wear that hat. I would say on field, man. I got to be with my people. You know what I'm saying? Like I got to be on field manager.
This is one specifically for you. If you could design any MLB uniform, you have to pick a franchise and design their uniform. Who do you pick?
Dang, you came with them.
This is all rapid. These are the rapid fire questions.
Yo, and I don't have rapid fire answers.
I love it. I love it. I
would say either the spring training mates. I'd go with like the Dodgers, OGs, or I'd go with maybe the White Sox. And then I could go even further. I could be like, yo, the Expos or the Milwaukee Brewers.
I like it.
I definitely like Dodgers, White Sox because, like, you know, I'm from Illinois and grew up going to Sox games, but I love the Dodgers. They're just classic uniforms. You can flip them a little bit.
I think I know where you're going to go with this one. But if you could pick one retired player or like legacy player, not a contemporary player, and make him a Steelo athlete, who's that player?
Ooh.
See, I thought I knew the answer to this one. You're thinking about it. I thought I knew.
I would probably say Barry Bonds, man. Like I have a certain level, I got a crazy level of respect for this man, and like everything he's done and gone through in the game, and like regardless of everything, like that man to me is one of the most prolific athletes ever when it comes to like hand-eye coordination.
No, we're Bond super fans over here.
I got my dangly cross earring.
Yeah, no, we're
yes.
I wrote a poll question after the end of the World Baseball Classic is if it was Shohei versus Bonds as opposed to Trout. What do you think would have happened?
Yeah, I mean,
because he threw 2 100-mile-an-hour fastballs right down the middle. I'm like, I don't know if Bonds lets those go.
Bonds would turn anything around.
Oh, you know where I thought you were going to go? Because I said I thought I knew the answer. You know where I thought you were going to go with that?
What?
Sean Dunston.
Sean got me like
from the historical standpoint of the company.
Yeah, Sean Dunston like definitely had a major impact on me, seeing him kind of move outside of the game off the field. But like, yeah.
I like it though. I like it. Let's close this thing out with some real hip hop fun, if you will. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and then we'll get to your top 5. What's the heaviest rotation in the playlist right now? What is your creative juices listening to right now?
I just was playing Nas, his most recent album in the car yesterday.
Just KD3?
King's
Disease 3?
Yeah. I've been playing a lot of Ross off and on lately. There's something about that, he's just got a different thing. I've been playing some, you would appreciate this, a lot of 90s stuff. I got a playlist on my Spotify that has like Raekwon and like Boot Camp Click and, Tribe and De La Soul. So like, it's all over the place. It's all about the day. Like whatever day it is, like, and that whatever that vibe is, I'm bumping it.
The East Coast bias over here is very strong. Like I'm from Virginia, I live in Virginia, but the New York East Coast bias very, very strong with this one over here, with me over here. All-time album. If you had to listen to one album for the rest of your life, what is it?
Dang. Probably something that would be feel good, which would be Midnight Marauders, Tribe Called Quest, or Far Side, either Lab Cabin or Bizarre Ride.
I like it. I feel like you're a West Coast guy, but I feel like you have a heavy East Coast bias. Yeah, I feel like a lot of New York bias. Let's end it with the good stuff. Hit me with the top five, Steve. Top five, dead or alive. Who do you got?
I mean, one, and I'll probably get a lot of feedback for this. Black Thought with the Roots. I think he is. I think he is the most solid when it comes to lyrics and lyricists and just delivery. He's incredible. So shout out to him. Common's definitely probably number 2 for me. Nas, next.
This is a very lyrical list, Steve. Very lyrical. Black Thought, Common, Nas, very lyrical.
Yeah, and then I'd probably throw like a Biggie, Tupac in there.
So those are 4 and 5. That's it.
Yeah, that'd be my 4 and 5.
I like it. We're gonna look. No judgment here. No comments.
Hey, bring on the judgment. Let's go.
No, it's just there's no Hove in there. None.
Yo, I mean, you asked me this 10 years ago. Hove might be in there. Hove's
look, Hove, because he has eyes everywhere. That was not me. I understand.
We might have to scrap this part.
Yeah, we got to figure this one out. No, brother, it is amazing to talk to you. Like I said, we could have done it. We could do this for hours and hours on end. Tell everybody 2 things: where they can find Steelo Sports, everything that you're doing, and then me personally, tell me where I can get that sweatshirt, because that crew neck is something that I had not seen before, and it is, it's like that.
Yeah, these haven't come out yet. I'll definitely take care of you when they're ready.
All right, let's make that happen.
Yeah, no, they can get at me at Steelo Sports on the gram, as well as steelosports.com. Download the app. The Gloves app if you get a chance. But yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm out there.
We're going to end it here. We got to do this again, because I will tell you why. Oftentimes on these conversations, we do talk about what we can do as brothers in the community, people that have platforms, people that have companies, what we can do to make sure that the culture in the community knows that there are people like you in existence, and getting that increased participation and awareness. We talked about a lot of things in this interview. I want to get your thoughts on how we can make that better, that part of the active participation. And I'm telling you that now, so when you come back on, we'll talk heavy about that as well. But I wanted people to know what Steelo Sports is, how it came about, and how you are in your own right moving the game in the right direction. So I really appreciate it, Steve. We're going to do this again. Until next time, just make sure you check out what they're doing, because it is an amazing, the gloves look amazing. The bats look amazing. I did not see the batting gloves on the website, but I saw a couple of things that was dropping around. There's a whole lot of things coming. And we'll follow back up with Steve and make sure that we're on top of everything that's happening. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Black Baseball Mixtape. Until next time, we see it.